SLU International Business Now, Conversations That Matter is a podcast developed by the Boeing Institute of International Business in St. Louis University's Chaffetz School of Business. Special thanks to founder Dr. Sung Kim for his grant to support the launch of this podcast.
Welcome to all our listeners from the St. Louis University Boeing Institute of International Business. I'm your host, Chris Carril, bringing you the latest episode of Conversations That Matter. For this episode, I'm pleased to be joined by Dr. Vas Taras, founder and coordinator of the X-Culture Project. Dr. Taras is also the department head and professor of international business at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. It's a pleasure to have you with me today, Doctor, and to speak about the X-Culture Project.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you. It's been a year since you and I met, and I'm glad you're here and are able to speak to me about the project. I'd like to start our conversation today by asking, how was the X-Culture Project originally envisioned, and how did it come about?
The project is 16 years old, and the original vision was much, much simpler than what it had become. So the big prompt for X-Culture was when I started teaching international business here in North Carolina, not the most international state. I would find myself frequently in a situation where I would be talking to my students about some of the challenges of international business. And they would be understanding my words but not fully comprehending the message. So I would feel as if I'm trying to teach them how to swim on a football field. You need to get in the water. You cannot learn how to swim from lectures or games in the classroom. And so at that time, the idea was very simple. I thought I would find one or maybe a couple professors in other countries who also teach international business. We would put our students in international teams, give them some hypothetical case study to work on, but importantly, they would be working across time zone differences, cultural differences, and would experience in real life what we're trying to explain to them through lectures. And so the idea was probably the right one at the right time, because instead of 2-3 professors, I got about a dozen responses within a couple of hours. So the first time we did it in 2010, we had 7 universities from 7 different countries. So even at that time, when we said international, it was like literally every team member from a different country. But then it just grew and grew and grew. So soon enough, we had thousands of students. So now normally we would have about 6,000 students from about 180 universities, 75 countries, all 6 continents every semester. So twice that every year. But then, so some other changes started happening. So in addition to just the sheer volume, the number of participants, the number of universities and countries, so one big challenge or change was the switch from hypothetical case studies to real life challenges. So one of our professors was doing a consulting project with Mercedes-Benz. They were looking for some ideas for a marketing campaign they were working on. They thought it would be a good idea to ask X-Culture students to share their thoughts. So they called me. I thought that was great. Let's try. It worked very well. And so since then, we would invite real companies that normally seek advice with expanding into new markets. So this way, for students, it's not just some hypothetical exercise. It's an actual company with a real life challenge, real managers that they meet, so much more practical. Likewise, research. So originally we thought it would be just simply peer evaluations for grading purposes. But then soon enough, we needed to know more why some teams do better than others, why some people are more likely to be team leaders, why some teams have conflicts and others don't. So we started collecting data, and then before we knew it, we started publishing papers, doctoral dissertations defended based on X-Culture. So by now we've published probably close to 200 scholarly papers and about a dozen dissertations defended. So research has become a big component. And then likewise, some of our professors started bringing students with them to our major scholarly conferences. And at some point, so many students were coming with professors that we started overwhelming conferences for professors. And so at some point we just thought, okay, well, more students would like to meet face to face than a conference can accommodate. So we started organizing our own X-Culture Global Symposia. So now we have 2 of those every year. In fact, one will be in a couple of weeks in Finland. So 150 students from about 50 countries plus about 50 professors. So that has become essentially like a separate program. And so, yeah, much of that was just responding to demand and acting on ideas brought about by students or some professors. So not a grand vision originally, but somehow has become this big international enterprise.
Wow, that's an incredible story as to the origins and what X culture has become. As you know, I met not just you last year, but had the opportunity to host one of the X culture groups here at my company's
Yep.
campus. And I will tell you, I not only myself, but everyone from my company who interacted with them was very impressed. The intelligence, the the commitment that these young people had to the project. So it really was exciting to meet them, and it's exciting to talk about X culture and just how big it has become. But how many students do you think are currently in the X culture project, and how many do you think have participated in total over the life of X culture?
So I have the precise numbers. So
Yeah.
it's 132,000 students who have completed the project. So they come depending on how you count the countries, because if you go by the country of origin, then it's over 100 in any given semester. But that's because many of them are international students studying
Okay.
in the United States, Canada, and so on. By the location of the country, so it's about 80 countries over the years and about 60 to 75 in a given semester, depending on which universities participate in the project. And then, so currently it's summer, so we are in recess. So we do it spring and fall, but in a given semester, it's usually about 6,000 students, close to 200 universities, and about 70 countries or so. So that allows us to have, yes, when we say international teams, normally
Yeah.
everyone is from a different country. And then we also, same thing with the companies. So it's been about 200 companies or so that participated over the years. We always try to limit it to about 5, 6 companies just because the logistics becomes too difficult. But then always the last few weeks before the project starts,
Yeah.
students bring companies they work for or know of that have very interesting challenges, products. And then I am weak. I always say, okay, well, let's take this one and then let's take that one. And
Yeah.
somehow we always end up more like 15 companies or so. So.
That is incredible. I mean, just the sheer number of what you're talking about is incredible, and how you've been able to hold it all together and coordinate it. That's what a great story. Um, so, as I understand, X culture is designed in a way really to have sort of three main audiences, and I was hoping maybe you could speak about its impact not just on the students, but I think you touched on the instructors, on academics, and also on the businesses in that, you have this database of research that businesses can tap into.
Yes, so technically, yes, you're absolutely right. Xculture is essentially a three-sided platform. So it brings together professors, students, and companies. So for students, it's primarily experience, but also professional connections. So they meet other students, and many of those come from elite universities. Tomorrow, they will become entrepreneurs, politicians,
Mhm.
city mayors, you name it. So getting to know those people is both inspirational, but sort of utilitarian for your future career. Then we have professors, and here it's sort of two-sided. On the one hand, as teachers, they benefit greatly, and we've done a lot of studies published in multiple journals. um, so we know that when Xculture is part of the course, students give professors higher teaching evaluations compared
Mhm.
to control groups, but also they tend to do better on exams. So essentially, professors benefit from Xculture being part of their course, but also most professors have to do research, publish in scholarly journals. And Xculture, and again here, I hope it will not come out sort of wrong, but the truth is it's unprecedented in human history research platform on global virtual teams. What I mean by that is that teams, work groups, corporate teams, project teams, they are notoriously difficult to study for the reason that they
Mm,
do not exist in large numbers in the wild where multiple teams work on the same project at the same
yeah,
time under the same conditions. So if you would like to study what, how things work in work groups in organizations, even if you get access to large companies, like for example your company, I'm sure you have hundreds
yeah,
of teams, but all of them have
yeah,
different managers, projects, timelines, so very difficult to find a sample where you can compare them directly. Moreover, even if, let's say, somehow we struck an agreement with you and you said, sure, you have access to my coworkers here, well, you still wouldn't allow us to bombard them with frequent surveys, to conduct experiments on them, tell them, manipulate their compensation or how they communicate. At best, we will be able just to observe them and maybe ask occasionally a few questions. With Xculture, it's different. You have literally about 1,000 teams each semester, so about 6,000 people, and you can conduct experiments. So that's, as long as the Research Ethics Board approves it. But also we can have frequent surveys. We can do all kinds of changes, team size, team composition, how they communicate. And so the only comparable context might be, I don't know, like the military. So they have a lot of, people that you can sort of study. But again, that's a very unique context. I'm not sure if you can generalize it to the corporate world. Whereas with Xculture, it's close enough. These are real project teams. And then finally, the companies. Again, originally we approached it as, well, we need them just so that they can give students something to work on. But over the years, we've seen so many, I guess I can call them success stories. So we've seen companies benefiting greatly from the students' input. So first and foremost, bright, brilliant ideas. And in many cases, it's not because students are
mm,
so smart. It just, when you have thousands of people working on your challenge, it just
uh,
serendipitously, somebody knows something, comes up
yeah,
with something, knows somebody, saw a
yeah,
company in their country do something clever that can be done by this client company as well. So yes, 9 out of 10 proposals are not particularly good, but 1 in 10 is good, and 1 in 100 is just brilliant to the point that the company says, "My gosh, why didn't we do it before?" But then
yeah,
also hiring talent. As one manager once said, and very truly, he says, normally when we hire people, we have a cover letter, the CV, maybe half an hour interview. Here we can observe these students for half a year, essentially for the whole semester. We have multiple data points on their performance, diligence, timeliness, peer evaluations, quality of the work. So that's really a much more sort of effective way to identify talent. And so many students end up with job offers, internship offers, things like that. So, and then also when it comes to sort of market research, we have, as I call it, global talent locally. So meaning that we have thousands of people around the planet. And so even when you hire some of the biggest companies, I don't know, Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, most likely they will assign a smaller team of consultants who are in Boston or whatever city, and they wouldn't have their own representatives, locals in dozens of countries. So with Xculture, if let's say your slogan means something bad in the local culture or company name, or the packaging color is wrong, or something else is not right, they will know it right away. They will spot it right away.
yeah,
Likewise, they often ask, could you interview 5 potential customers or retailers or distributors? Again, each student does a little, yeah, talks to 5 friends, but you put it together and you got yourself a global survey of hundreds of thousands of potential consumers. So here, that's one of those, it's like Wikipedia. So hundreds of thousands of people contribute, and then within a few years, the Encyclopedia Britannica goes out of business. Same thing here. So some
yeah,
tasks, like you're a financial expert. So obviously, no matter how many amateurs you have, they will not be able to do the job that you do. Or if we needed to build, I don't know, a nuclear reactor, you need a few nuclear physicists. So a crowd will
yeah,
not be able to beat that kind of,
yeah,
experts. But if you need to conduct market research, if you need to generate ideas, if the task is something that requires volume and sort of semi-knowledge, then yeah, Wikipedia beats the Encyclopedia Britannica. So Xculture crowd can, if not outperform, then definitely on some tasks be as good, if not better than, professional consultants.
that's that's great. I really, being a business person myself, that third piece, and again, I as a parent, I love getting jobs and interviews, but but that business piece and having that data out there, that research out there, and just the access to these people. I mean, what a success story that is. And I guess that sort of, you know, is a good segue. In your years doing this and all the students and all the projects and all the companies, do you have any particular success story or even individual that you think of when you think of the X Culture project? Your shining star, your one story you like to tell?
Well, one that I really like, and so this one is sort of dear to my heart because the company has a Ukrainian connection.
Oh,
So there was this company, well, it still is, but was named Unplag. So it's a Ukrainian
okay,
company specializing in
okay.
plagiarism detection. And
Oh,
so they were trying to expand into new markets. And so the name of the company was Unplag. That kind of makes sense. Plagiarism,
hmm,
plag, unplag. So get
hmm,
rid of plagiarism.
yeah,
But
yeah,
then again, yes, quite a few teams worked on that challenge that year, and almost all of them said, yeah, Unplugged doesn't sound particularly appealing, at least not to the English-speaking audience. And so, yes, if one expert told you that, or even two,
yeah,
you would have your
yeah,
own biases. But
yeah.
if 100 teams are working on this, they talk to their friends, and everybody says, no, the name needs to change, that means something. And then one team came up with the name Unicheck, and they're like, oh, University Check, yeah, that sounds good. So they renamed themselves Unicheck, and then actually did so well that at some point they were acquired by Turnitin, so the global leader in
Oh,
plagiarism
yeah,
detection.
absolutely.
So that was an interesting sort of experience. Going back to that Mercedes-Benz, so that was a very interesting actually
Yeah.
challenge. So originally they needed some help with marketing. Then they were so happy that they invited our best students to visit their factory in Istanbul, Turkey, where they make buses and trucks. And so they have the full cycle factory from a roll of metal all the way to where they put the key in the ignition, turn the key, and the truck starts. And we are
Yeah.
talking about like 12 years ago. So at that time, we still used keys instead of pushing the button. And so,
Yeah.
and so they gave the students a new challenge as they were working on that, getting ready for the
Yeah.
trip. And I remember that they wanted some, again, marketing ideas. And one team completely defied the task and they said, no, what you need is an app that is a platform for drivers. And so that will allow you to get better sort of community development. And also you will get some data that you need for your. And so I still remember the chief technical officer, at least at that factory. I'm not sure if he's for the whole Mercedes-Benz or just the buses and trucks, but he said that's a very strange situation. So they did not what we asked. They didn't do what we asked, but it was such a great idea that we definitely need to develop that app. And I was so
Yeah.
proud at that point. And so they got like an honorary. So I think they didn't win the competition, but they were like in a whole separate category. And they said,
Oh,
that's a brilliant idea. We love it. We need to work on it. Yes, we need to do it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's wonderful. So that's what we
yeah.
do. So to be honest, I don't know if they eventually succeeded with that app or not. But
Yeah.
I thought, okay, well, this young generation can maybe teach a company at that time with 100 years of, of building cars that, well, maybe there is more to it than what you thought about. So.
Oh, but those are two great stories, and thank you for sharing them with us today. As we come to the end of our time together, and I always ask this of all of our guests, if there's one thing you wanted to convey to our audience about X culture before we part ways, what would that be, Vaz?
There are two things maybe that I would like to convey. So
Yeah.
one, if anyone either wants to build something similar or wants to better understand who we are, so we are not a company in a traditional sense. We are
Yeah.
not a service provider. We are a community of professors. And the reason I would like to stress that is that it gives us well, it is a challenge because we have a virtually non-existent budget, and I wish we were operating more as a company in
Yeah.
some ways.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it makes us indestructible in a way that we do not depend on funding. So projects like Xculture have been around for a while, and most of the time it would be some sort of a grant. Like there was, for example, one from NAFTA, the North America Free Trade Agreement,
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah.
gave money to universities from Mexico, Canada, and the United States to do something similar to what we do. And it was, I think it was like a 5-year grant or something like that. And then the
Yeah.
grant stopped, money dried up, and they just stopped doing it. So in
Hmm.
our case, yes, it's a curse that we never had any resources, because if we did, we would be able to do so much more. But at the same
Hmm.
time, the way we are set up is that we do not depend on sort of paid personnel. The deal is that professors join because they would like to give their students something extra, but in exchange, we expect them to be essentially partners, not consumers. So they don't pay me and I don't provide service to them. We all collaborate and do our best, and so that creates this special environment where people do it because they love and respect what they do, the positive sort of collegial atmosphere. But at the same time, as I said, if I had to hire on the free market this kind of help, hundreds of professors, PhDs,
Yeah.
who it would be millions of dollars per year. Here,
Oh,
we
sure.
can run a global enterprise on all 6 continents with virtually no budget. And so this is unique. And as I said, many people don't realize it. They think that we are some sort of a vendor who just offers some sort of simulations
Yeah.
or cases to universities. And no, it's a partnership of professors, not a service providing company. And another thing, and that's sort of especially in the current world, again, with my Ukrainian connection, the war in Ukraine,
Yeah.
one thing sometimes I think that while we do pretty well on this education slash business side, crowdsource and consulting, in a
Yeah.
way, I'm even more proud of our contribution to, let's call it, building bridges across borders. So at the time when, we see Brexits and, walls between countries being built, what Xculture does is, yes, we try to teach people how to work together, how to collaborate internationally. We conduct a lot of research, and we know we actually have tons of empirical evidence that
Yeah.
cultural intelligence improves from before to after, interest in working with people from different countries improves from before to after, confidence in ability to work, so self-efficacy improves, but also prejudice goes down. And people are more capable of working together. And it seems like our planet is facing quite a few challenges that will require global collaboration. And so with now over 100,000, over 130,000 people having completed Xculture, I'm hopeful, maybe I'm a little delusional, but I'm hopeful that, well, let me put it this way. If we have reduced the chance of the Third World War by 1 point, or 0.01%,
Yeah.
then yes, I think we've done all this, the hundreds of thousands of hours we've invested in it were not for nothing. And so, yes, my hope is that not only we teach the young people how to work internationally in the business context, but also
Yeah.
hopefully how to collaborate around all kinds of challenges. And hopefully, when they come together and do things together, they will be more effective at working across time zones, cultural differences, institutional differences. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, because of all this work, there will be fewer global conflicts. Maybe,
Yeah.
some bad things will not happen and good things will happen. And if so, then, as I said, yes, then we're doing this, not for nothing.
I will tell you, Vaz, that is one of the more thoughtful closing thoughts that I have had when hosting these podcasts. Thank you so much. That I hope if people get nothing else, they listen to that 2 or 3 minutes of the podcast. What a great thought, and what a positive thought. So thank you. We've come to our close. Our listeners and I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Good luck with your X Culture project. For those interested in more information about the X Culture project, we will have a link to their organization in the show notes below. Thank you for joining us today, Vaz.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the important work you do with this podcast. On the one hand, there are more videos on YouTube and Spotify than one can watch. At the same
Yeah,
time, much of that is I don't want to call it noise, but much of noise there. And
yeah.
so I listened to a few programs that you released recently, including one with my colleagues from the Academy of International Business. My
Hmm.
gosh, I actually learned something I didn't know. I thought I was part of the team. So it is educational, insightful stuff. So I wish
Good.
more of content like this was produced and released. Highly encourage everyone to listen to the past episodes.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That brings us to our close. I'm your host, Chris Carril, bringing you conversations that matter. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the SLU International Business Now Conversations That Matter podcast. We invite you to subscribe to this podcast series so you don't miss any future episodes. To learn more about the Executive Master of International Business program, please visit biib.slu.edu. Again, that's biib.slu.edu.